Hello, it's Duncan. My video on Gradle was my most popular yet, and there was a lot of discussion on YouTube and Reddit. But I don't want to be known for my rants. My job as an engineer is to deliver value to my clients efficiently and effectively, not to complain about how hard that can be. That said, thank you to the people who said they were heartened by the knowledge that it isn't just them. Simple things are often harder than they should be. Thank you also to people in JetBrains who contacted me to discuss my issues. Both JetBrains and Gradle know there are problems with build tooling, and both had talks at KotlinConf outlining their approaches. Neither have much detail, but AMPA is at least available in early access for us to try. Today's video doesn't do that though. Instead, it starts from a new Git clone of the project, so that I can work out how to move from Java 19 to 21 with a fresh pair of eyes and a fresh checkout. Oh good grief, here we go. In order to work out what went wrong and maybe learn from it, I'm going to retrace my steps. So here we are with the Ktor documentation, and we'll copy that URL. Okay then, let's git clone that. And now we'll open the directory in IntelliJ. So we will open, we'll look in to delete Ktor documentation, and we'll go down into the code snippets because that's the root of the Gradle build, where we have settings for Gradle KTS. So let's open that. And you can see here Gradle is building, configuring projects. Things happen. We carry on recording. I have a cup of tea. So now what's happening here, I believe, is that IntelliJ is having to build with Gradle, which is to say execute the build files, in order to know what projects there are. And one of the reasons for that is if we look in settings.gradle.kts, for example, which is the start of the build, you can see here we add modules, snippets, Jetty War, Tomcat War, and so on, but we don't just declare them with project, we have a function that is executed in order to declare them as projects. When I say we, this particular build does that. And it does that to make this nice and neat. And it also does it because down here, it adds other projects depending on your operating system. So making use of the flexibility of a language to do things that we probably couldn't just declare if we had a declarative build system. Okay, so now IntelliJ has asked Gradle to run some code. Gradle has run the code, and that means that IntelliJ knows that there are these projects. And I assume because we are Mac OS 10, then we will actually have a module which is Client Engine Darwin. And let's have a look. There we are. We have Client Engine Darwin, but we don't have Client Engine Win or Embedded Server Native. Okay, then the next thing I'm going to do is go into the tutorial that I was interested in, which is tutorial HTTP API. So we'll drill down into that. It's got source. That creates two Gradle modules, one for main and one for test. So we're all doing well. Let's run all the tests in here. And something happens. Okay. And now we've got some output. What do we have? So Kotlin.js Gradle plugin is deprecated and will be removed in future. Well, I guess this is a complicated project and it's designed to be multi-platform, so that's okay. More pertinent to me on the JVM is this here. Compile Java task, current target 19, and compile Kotlin task, current target is 1.8. JVM target compatibility should be set to the same Java version. That would become an error since Gradle 8.0. Which begs the question, what version of Gradle are we running? Now that's sort of decided, I think, by the build up here. So in Gradle, we have Gradle wrapper.properties, and that suggests at least that we're using Gradle 7.6.4. In order to check that, let's go to the command line, and we will run /Gradle w --version. And that tallies Gradle 7.6.4. What's interesting though, as we saw last time, is that the Kotlin version here is 1.7.10. And I believe, though, that that's not the version of Kotlin that we'll be building with. And it's not the version of Kotlin we'll be targeting. It's the version of Kotlin that's used for parsing these KTS files that are part of the Gradle build. And we also have a JVM version, and again, that's JVM 1.8, and that's the version that will be used for running this Gradle. So Gradle is itself a Java application, and so it needs to run on JVM, and it will be running on 1.8. And the reason I think it's running on 1.8 is because on my Mac by default, Java minus, no, not minus, heaven forfend, minus version is 1.8 point something. Same version? It is, yes. So Gradle is a Java application that's running under the version of Java that is current in the environment that we run it in. Okay. Back to when we actually ran a build. That says here that the current target for Java is 19. Now, that's not necessarily the version of Java that is going to be used to compile our project, but it's the version of the bytecode, I think, that we are going to be targeting. So they couldn't run on a JVM, whose version was less than 19. Where does that come from? Well, I had wondered whether it came from Gradle properties, because that includes a lot of versions, including our Kotlin version and our Ktor version, but it's not there. Let's try settings.gradle.kts. So that has no references to a version, which I don't think is surprising because it's only supposed to be defining modules. And finally, build.gradle. Notice this one's Gradle and not KTS. Let's have a look in here. Okay then, this starts with a build script block, and I think a lot of the complication here is around the fact that this project seems to be used to test different versions of things against different versions. So there's this build snapshot train, which makes everything a lot more complicated. But carrying on down, this I find completely hilarious. This file is intentionally empty. But we go on and we have a check. And then for all projects, we do some things. X Kotlin version is root project properties. Oh no, this is only build snapshot train, so we can ignore that. So nothing, Ktor repositories, nothing, Maven settings, configure all projects, some stuff around Maven, but I don't think that's significant. Again, if build snapshot train, not interested, carry on. So nothing again about Java 19 in any of this that I can see. And it's a shame that we can't see 19 anywhere, because if you remember, before we started beating off the alligators, what we actually wanted to do was update the Java we were targeting to Java 21. Maybe the 19 is specified somewhere else. Let's have a look in the whole project. So we'll look for 19, and there are 103 matches. Log4j version, no. Something random in an ID, 4.19 for package lock. Indexes, manifests, something in an SVG file, but nothing specifies 19 in anything that seems to approach a Java version. So that's no good, but we do have this build.gradle.kts in the directory for this particular submodule. And that has Kotlin JVM, but doesn't mention Java anywhere. Just check. I mean, in the whole project, we barely mention Java. Nothing in any of these project files, certainly. So I'm forced to assume that the Kotlin JVM plugin is the thing that brings in Java, but then it's rather strange if it brings in a version of Java and sets 19 and 1.8 to be incompatible with each other. But okay, I think I'm going to have to assume that the version of Java we're using, this 19, is as a result of this Kotlin JVM. One thing I'd just like to look at is if we go here and say, look at the settings. For the project, we are using 19, which agrees with what Gradle appears to be setting. And we have settings for our individual modules as well. Dependencies, 19. So that all seems plausible, except we don't know where 19 comes from. One thing I would just like to do is to check that we are using the same Gradle in both places. If you remember here, we did Gradle -- version. Let's try and make a build configuration like that. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to say edit configurations. I'm going to say give me a new Gradle configuration, and I want you to run -- version. And let's run that. And unknown command line version -- version. That is strange. Let's go back here. I'm going to edit the one I've got, which I know works. So here, this says, for example, build -- debug, and -- debug is certainly a flag. So let's just try -- version here, run that, and the same thing. So -- version appears to be a special command line option that is only visible when you actually run from the command line. I don't know. Okay, moving on. Just going to remove that if it's not going to help us, and run. Good, and now we haven't got the complaint about the versions, but I assume that's because we haven't really cleaned, so we haven't built. So if I was to go here and say clean That's slower than you might like, and fails. Oh, good grief. Here we go. Compatibility, Gretty, I don't know, Java 11. So in fact, on the command line, it turns out we could build, but we couldn't clean. No, actually, we didn't try to build on the command line, did we? Let's do that. So let's say /gradle w. Where were we? We were in snippets, tutorial -http -api. And that will invoke the default target, but seems to have the same problem. Okay, and if I do the thing that I would normally do, which is cd into snippets tutorial http, and then do /gradle w, clean say, I can't do that. Can I do that via IntelliJ? So I'm going to go to tutorial http API, say tasks, build. Ah, there we are. Clean is inside that. So let's run that one. And that does build. So there's something different in the way that IntelliJ is running Gradle and the command line is running Gradle, but I don't know what it is and I have no idea how to debug it. Bear in mind this is a clean checkout from GitHub, not my build at all. So now I'm left with the problem of whether to just continue running Gradle through IntelliJ, which seems to work, or to try and get it running on the command line. And because everyone would just say upgrade Gradle, I think I'm just going to upgrade Gradle and see whether that fixes everything. So, same instructions as last time, Gradle, wrapper, take that. And now I trust I'm going to be running enough of that on the command line. Let's give it a go. So we'll say cd back to where we were, and, oh, big cd, little cd, back to where we were, and now paste that. Oh, but fool me twice, shame on me. /gradle w, wrapper, upgrade. Some things happened and the build failed. Oh, marvelous. The same issue. I mean, I know what I'm supposed to do now. Looking through the error, it seems to be something about some plugin or something, but nothing I'm actually using, which I suppose is why this worked last time, because I had deleted all the other projects. I had to get myself back on an even keel here. Well, actually, I don't care about any of the other projects, so hang it all, I'm just going to delete them. Here we go. So that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. One moment, please. Okay, let's delete these. Refactor. Oh, okay, I can't delete. I could remove each individual module. Oh, I don't know. I'm off to Finder and delete them there. Okay, here we go. Wish me luck. Now back to IntelliJ. Okay, we had a little crash there. So now I'm going to run just our tests again, see how we are doing. All of the Gradle demons would have gone, so that will take a while. Okay, so we're back to our issue with current target 19 and compile Kotlin task 1.8. But now let's go and try and upgrade Gradle to fix that problem. So we're going to do the thing that we tried to do before. Splendid, and run our build again, running the tests. And now I think behind the scenes we're probably downloading the new version of Gradle, so this will take a while. Talk amongst yourselves. Oh, good. And we are not seeing the error, but on the other hand we didn't clean first, so let's go over here and do that there. Okay, and now in fact let's just run test here, because we can. Idle. Oh, here we go. Still building thing. Ah, but fails there. Failing tests. Try running here. Passing tests. Back here, just do the clean. Back here, just run the test. But we seem now to have lost our warnings that we were targeting a different version of Java than we were targeting with the Kotlin JVM plugin. Okay. One little thing I want to check, I remember from last time, is if I go to the settings and say build, so Gradle here, so we are build and run using Gradle, and we are running the Gradle with the wrapper and with the Gradle JVM as the project SDK, which I suspect is different than the one that Gradle on the command line is running. Maybe that's the issue. Interesting. Well, I choose not to solve that problem just yet, but I wonder whether it is a gotcha. In fact, hang it. No, let's go back here, say Gradle -- version to see that we are running Java 1.8. So now let's go back to here and say, let's try running this with Java 1.8. Okay. And now, will that have changed this task or not? Let's delete it anyway. So let's delete that one and delete that one. And now we're going to go over here and we're going to rerun the source tests. See if they fail in the same way as the command line does. Ah, they do. So I suspect that that is our issue running on the command line. Not certain, but last time we did solve that problem by creating a new file in here with .java-version. And then inside that, we're going to say, I want to be running with 19.0, I think. Save that, go back to the command line. Now run Gradle and see what Gradle's running with. And now it's running with 19. So I wonder whether that means, in fact, that Gradle could run the tests. We said cd into snippets tutorial, HTTP API, and then say .. Gradle w clean test. Okay, so our tests weren't able to run under 1.8, but by forcing Java to 1.9, we can run the tests on the command line, and now we should go back here and we should say that here I want to run not with 1.8, but with 19. Okay, and now that will work. It will. Good. We're making a bit of progress. Okay then, so now we're going to do the thing that we did last time, which is go to the build.gradle KTS, configure the Kotlin plugin, and tell it that we want JVM toolchain 21. Okay, now let's try the build, and as it builds on the command line as well, I think we'll go straight there. So that's talking to various JDKs because we run up whatever a toolchain is. And now we have build failure and unknown Kotlin JVM target 21. Hooray, we're back to where we were 2 weeks ago, but only one episode ago. Well, 1.001 episode ago. Now then, what I've learned since last week is that this exception here, unknown Kotlin JVM target 21, is because of a Kotlin version issue. But the Kotlin version issue is subtle. So let's take that out of the way a bit. It turns out that this build, the one for Ktor code snippets, has a top-level build.gradle. And in the top-level build.gradle, let's put that away, in the build script block here, we have a dependency with a class path of the org JetBrains Kotlin Gradle plugin with Kotlin version. Now, what does that mean? Well, the Kotlin Gradle plugin, which is the thing that builds Kotlin inside Gradle, is itself written in Kotlin and is shipped as a jar. And this is explicitly putting a particular version of that jar into the dependencies of the build script itself. So it's not the version of Kotlin we're going to be building with, and it's not the version of Kotlin that we're going to be targeting. It is, I think, the version of Kotlin that was around when the Kotlin Gradle plugin was written. So I wonder, in fact, whether just commenting this out would get us running, so that we use whatever the latest version is. Let's give that a go. No. Why? Oh, well, because it turns out we are not bringing in the Gradle Kotlin plugin. Aha. So putting this on the class path means that the plugin is available, but I wonder then whether actually... No, I don't know. My life is too short. Let's cut to the chase. This Kotlin version here is set in this Gradle properties. Yes. And is 1.9.10. But that didn't know anything about Java 21, so it couldn't target it. We upgrade this to, say, 20, and come back here, and then reinstate this. I believe things will be good. Holds breath, and they are. Now you might say, why specify this version at all? And I think that's a good question. If we just took this out altogether, I think it would use the latest one and we could run. No, it turns out not. So there goes my logic. Let's redo that. So we need a version in there, it seems, unless we find another way of getting this to compile without that bit. So we go back here and run that. Whatever this error message is, which is to say plugin ID or JetBrains Kotlin JVM was not found. I thought that should happen because we're doing this Kotlin JVM. Gradle core plugins, included builds, plugin repositories. Plugin dependency must include a version number for this source. Was that the same thing as we were getting? I don't know. I think I'm just going to look up plugin repositories and see whether that helps. Oh no, hold on, it says try. Oh no, we know that that's useless. In fact, let's just look up this error message and see what AI Assistant has to say. How do I fix this error? Okay, so it's not my internet connection. I suspect it's not my Gradle plugin version. I suspect the issue here is this plugin management in settings.gradle.kts. So this is our settings.gradle.kts. It doesn't have, does it? Oh, it has a plugin management. And it says Gradle plugin and Maven Central. So I just don't know. So I would expect it to be able to find that now, but it can't. Maybe it can't because it has to match the version number. I don't know. What I do know is that I spent quite a bit of time on this, and we do have a solution that works, which is just upgrade the Kotlin version in here to a version of Kotlin that admitted that Java 21 existed. So if we look at our diffs, we've changed this build.gradle. Show diff. So we've told Kotlin that we want to be building with 21. Well, that stopped things working, so we need to put it back in. So there are no changes to that. And all we've actually really changed is the Kotlin version to 1.9.20, which is a version that admits that Java 21 exists. Splendid. So just to recap the versions going on here. Gradle has a version, and it has a built-in version of Kotlin that it's using to parse KTS files for its own build, and it has a version of the JVM that it is being run on. Kotlin inside our application is built by a Kotlin JVM plugin, which itself is compiled against a version of Kotlin, but will be running on the JVM that Gradle itself is running on. It will be targeting a version of Java bytecode through this JVM toolchain, and I suppose actually a version of Kotlin that's separate from its own version, or the version that Gradle is using with some version of Kotlin that we could put into here. Oh, and then no doubt if we run the application through Gradle or run the tests through Gradle, there will be a particular version of the JVM and a particular version of Kotlin that do those two things, and I'm sure are configurable somewhere. So how do we fix this? Does this need fixing? Well, I had some interesting discussions at KotlinConf. One was with Martin Braun, who is the evangelist for Amper, which is a building project configuration tool from JetBrains. It takes a declarative approach, but as we've seen, everyone's builds are different. At some point, we all want to be able to run code like this within our builds, and it's not at all clear to me how that fits with a declarative tool. Amper is both a wrapper on top of Gradle, and now has its own non-Gradle engine. Its tooling support seems good, but where it is based on Gradle, all we're doing is layering simplicity on top of complexity. And if it decides not to be based on Gradle, then it pretty much has to re-implement everything that Gradle can possibly do. Gradle isn't letting the grass grow under its feet. It had a session on developer-first Gradle builds, and again talks about declarative build principles and expressive DSLs. Talking to the team, this expressive DSL seems to be a subset of Kotlin, is effectively just the builder DSL that configures plugins. Which will win out, Gradle or Amper, or Gradle and Amper? Who knows? I think the only conclusion I've really come to is that it's all pretty awful at the moment. Most people agree that it must be made better, and all I ever really needed to do was notice that this was set to an early version of Kotlin. Anyway, thanks to everyone who commented on the previous video and on the post on Reddit. Thank you especially to Frank, who was the first person to actually give a solution. I promise now to shut up about Gradle so Haddy doesn't have to send the boys round, and we'll resume normal service looking at the throughput of HTTP 4K and KTOR in the next episode. If you'd like to see that, then please subscribe to the channel, and if you'd like to support my rants, then you could buy the book that I wrote with that price called Java to Kotlin, a Refactoring Guidebook, details of which are in the show notes below. Thanks for watching.